am back. It is Goose. It is on with the show. I'm sorry for the little hiatus, but I have been working on something personally. For those of you who don't know, I am a screenwriter, and I had a couple of screenplays out to producers this past few months, and I finally heard back from one of them, and they liked the script that I'd sent them. I'm not going to go into details of what it is, but they gave me some notes, and so I have for the last week been working on the rewrite for this particular script, and I just heard back from the other producers for the other script, and they've given me some notes too. So I've been just furiously working, trying to get those rewrites done and trying to get. I mean, I've basically put a lot of other things on hold until I've gotten this done. But right now, I have one script back out. I'm gonna be working on the other one this week, and I think it's time for me to start coming back to you and start telling you for the today's topic is going to be yes, that beautiful, wonderful movie that's going to be coming out in I think March called Snow White. Yes, the live action Snow White that is being ratioed to death since its trailer was dropped at D23. It is, I think, currently maybe at 1.2 million dislikes or downlikes from YouTube. And I'm going to give three reasons why, unfortunately, this movie is going to bomb. Um, nothing that is, nothing too outrageous. But before we get into all the details, give me a big thumbs up, like the video, share this out to your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications when new things are going to be uploaded. Today's coffee mug is, yes, the poison apple from Snow White, because we are going to talk about how this live action remake is going to be one giant poison apple. Let's get into it. Yes, so they dropped the trailer at D23, um, and it immediately on YouTube got ratioed to death. Downlike after downlike after downlike. It basically, um, it just looks. I mean, there are even some of the more Disney um, people out there who are like just trying their best to um, they're trying their best to salvage this this film, but apparently it has just been met with one crazy controversy after another. Let's get into the first reason why this movie is going to bomb, and if you had not already noticed, why in the world did they decide to go with animated dwarves? Yeah, let's just go into it. This one is from Forbes, not to dated August 10th, 2024, by Eric Kane. He says, there's one huge problem with Disney's live action Snow White trailer. Let's get into it. The first trailer for Disney's upcoming live action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs dropped during this weekend's D23 event, and it has one huge problem, or should I say, little problem. One huge little problem. The film stars Rachel Ziegler as Snow White, Ansu Kabaya as Huntsman, Andrew Burnap as Jonathan the Prince, which, interestingly enough, the 37 version of his name was Henry, and Gal Gadot as the Evil Queen. Until now, all we've seen of the film, which lands in theaters March 21st, 2025, was a still image of Snow White and her dwarf buddies. At the time, I said I was glad that the dwarves were actually dwarves, because if you saw earlier images, it would probably freak you out. But I wish they'd cast real people, little people, specifically, rather than animated dwarves. This trailer honestly makes me kind of angry. My opinions on this matter have sharpened since that image was released, especially the new Time Bandits on Apple TV, which erased little people. Yeah, if you have not seen Time Bandits, it is a great movie from the 80s. It's a cult classic, um, and I highly recommend if you have a chance to go find it, watch the original movie Time Bandits. You will be amazed. It's one of the best fantasy films ever. But let's keep moving on. Apparently, in the current cultural moment, we are supposed to be so sensitive to prejudices against our concept of dwarves and halflings. And what have you that we no longer cast little people in our shows and movies? Of course, the dark irony here is that there are many little people actors who would love to get those roles in movies like Snow White and shows like Time Bandits. I'm honestly annoyed that Peter Jackson for not casting little people in the Hobbit roles for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Well, I was, I would, I thought that was fine. I mean, the way they did it. It goes on to say some, though, obviously not all of this trend can be traced back to the most famous LP actor Peter Dinklage, who commented while on Mark Maron's WTF podcast. Literally, no offense to anything, but I was sort of taken aback. They were very proud to cast a Latino actress, Latina, not Latino, Latino actress as Snow White. But you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take me back take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that effing backward story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. Okay, dude. The irony here is that rather than change the nature of the story to not include dwarves at all, if that was such a harmful stereotype, which I don't think the LP community would necessarily agree with, Disney simply animated the dwarves, instead removing little people from the cast entirely. Or rather not entirely, since we know LP actor Martin Kleba voices Grumpy, but entirely from the screen. And it's not like there are tons of little people roles out there, especially when so many of them are taken by regular sized people. Only major show in recent history to have LP. It was Disney's Willow reboot, and it was mostly bikini and genuinely awful. Writing at IndieWire, Kristen Lopez notes, if you're a member of the LP community or the disability community in general, you've seen this story before. The media frenzy followed by backpedaling, followed by the eventual erasure of disability altogether. That certainly seems to be the case with Snow White and with Snow White, which even has removed and the Seven Dwarfs from its title entirely. Yes, they have removed and the Seven Dwarfs from the title. If you look at, I've looked at a couple of the posters. In fact, I showed you a couple of posters. It just says Snow White. Snow White. Like the dwarves are just kind of like the afterthought. They happen to be just part of the story. And again, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, let's talk about Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage, who is an accomplished actor who's been around for a very long time, has won numerous awards, and he has used, I would say, his ability as a little person to his advantage. The only thing is, for some reason, it's almost like he doesn't want any other little person to be an actor, or at least to be in anything that could help. Um, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I mean, why in the world would you basically you cut the knees out from your own people? I mean, and first of all, there's not seven dudes living in a cave; they're in a cottage. It's been in a cottage. But if you've seen this picture of the seven dwarfs, it looks absolutely atrocious. Now we're going to go into this. There's dwarf actors out there that Let me pause this for a minute. So what you're going to hear in just a minute is Dylan Paulstall, who played Hornswoggle on WWE for many years, and he basically talks about this whole thing with the little people being the dwarves, the little people being removed from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The clip is about a minute and 36. It is from the it's from Tucker Carlson's show when he had a show. Let me just say you right now. Um, I'm a conservative, and I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson. I think the guy's a two-faced schmuck. All right. But he does do pretty good interviews, and he had Dylan Post on to talk about this. And so we're gonna go. And I couldn't get the clip to work, but I got the audio, and so here's what we got.
Now there's dwarf actors out there that their dream is to star in a film, especially a Disney film, because as we know, Disney doesn't do remakes or any of their movies at a small scale. They were gonna blow this movie up, obviously, and these are 7 roles that are few and far between for dwarves anyways, that were made for us. And that's what's ridiculous to me about the whole situation is it's not being progressive. You're hurting the community by what you're doing.
You make a really good point, and the film is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So I mean, if there was ever a place, it might be. All right.
It's not Snow White and the 7 normal-sized humans. I get that.
Right.
We have to be progressive. We have to move forward. But you're changing one of the most known fairy tales and one of the most known Disney adaptations of all time. Why? And also, I hate to say it, and the King Dwarf thing I said, and I mean that. Who put this guy in charge, and why is he the single voice? Like, for a whole community. For a whole community of people. I can argue I was on TV for 10 years. I was in film, not at the scale he was, but why? Because he throws the red flag, is everything stopped? And
that's such a great point.
What upsets me is...
So one guy has an opinion on a podcast, and he gets to take control of your career going forward. That's a little strange. So,
yeah, that is a little strange. And again, I don't understand, why. Because Dylan makes a great point. There aren't a whole lot of roles for little people out there, unless they're specifically written for little people. And here you have a movie specifically targeting little people, and Peter Dinklage goes on some podcast, Mark Maron's podcast, and basically said, oh, "Of course, the stereotypical, thing here of you're gonna put together, 7 little people for this role." Dude, are you gonna write a part for them? Are you gonna write a movie for them? And here's the thing, like the article just said, there's one little person involved in the film, and they're doing a voiceover for a dwarf. Make that make sense to me for just a minute. And Disney still could have made it a part of, still could have made it, where the dwarves could have been of different nationalities, or you could have even had a couple of female dwarves. But no, they freak out because Peter Dinklage says, "Oh, what stereotypical thing to do, getting little people for Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs," and Disney freaks out and goes, "Yeah, we can't do that. Let's animate them." Now, here's one, and again, this is one of the reasons why I think it's going to. Sorry, here's one of the reasons why I think it's going to fail. Because people are going to be sitting there looking at those animated dwarves dancing around, moving around, wondering why they just didn't get real people. And Disney could have saved themselves a boatload of money hiring 7 actors to do the same job that it would take 7 animators to do. Because the animators, everything still has to go through the CGI anyway. I remember hearing one person comment on this trailer, saying, "Well, at least the aesthetic looks good. At least they made the forest and the cottage look good. Oh, that wonderful. So they made the background look good." It gets kind of, again. Let's look at this. Let's look at this real quick. Look at this picture. Honestly, this just doesn't look right. You're supposed to have a live action film and you have 7 animated dwarves. Where somebody make this make sense to me. All right, let's move on to the next. So that's that's one thing, because I think it's going to flop because the CGI, of course, is just not going to be there. You have 7 animated dwarves. It's not going to be there. All right, so let's go on to reason number 2 that is going to flop, and of course, the reason number 2 is the most obvious, and it's Rachel Zegler. And Rachel Zegler has not done herself or Disney any favors by going out and running her mouth in interview after, even if it's not for Snow White, in interview after interview, when she's been doing her social media, she's done nothing but trash the film, trash the original, even so far as even trashing her own co-star, Andrew Burnett. And I think one of the writers on, and I got to kind of back up a little, because she talks about how this is more of a feminist kind of Snow White. And one of the writers in here is Greta Gerwig, who I want to just let me just say is a great writer. She's a great writer. She's got the chops. She did Lady Bird. She's done Little Women. She did the Barbie movie recently. She's got skills. I don't know if this is in her wheelhouse, because this is supposed to be a fairy tale, a romantic fairy tale. And even though she did show was able to show some romantic tendencies in Little Women with some of her characters, I don't know if she had. I mean, it's good. They're also directed by Mark Webb, who I also like. I think he's really good. I think he's up and coming. I don't know. He may have bitten off more than he could chew with this. Just again, but this is just my opinion. You have 2 people in here who've got the chops to do this, but are tasked with putting together a film, that is nothing like what they want to do. And then you have Rachel Zegler, who goes out and runs her mouth. And let's go into this, because I have a couple of videos to get to. Let's just show this first one.
Seeing little kids dressed up as Snow White makes me sob my eyes out.
Oh.
I can't, I go to the parks and I'm like... and
she just cries.
I do, and my best friend is like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "No." I went with my publicist Ashton. We were in Paris, and
Wait till it comes out.
I know.
Oh,
when it's
can't wait.
my version of the dress, it's like my. Oh no, I can't. But I was
it
like,
much different?
I mean,
Okay, so she cries when she sees the little girls wearing the Snow White dress. Really? And then she freaks out, like, well, wait till it comes out when they wear your dress. And I've already heard some people say, my God, that dress looks horrible. Like, they didn't go with a real blue. They went with more of a teal blue, which, I mean, I'm a god. I don't really understand the difference. Blue is blue. I mean, in some cases for me. It doesn't look horrible, but I understand what some people are getting at. But for her to sit there, and I don't know what she's doing an interview with Lucy Liu. I don't know if they're doing a movie together or what, but they're being. This is from Cinema Blend. I don't know what they're doing, but for her to sit there and be like, I cry every time I see the Snow White dress on a little girl. I mean, it just shows just disrespect for the product you're about to put out. I mean, do you understand what we're getting at here? Let's go on to the next video. This one has more of the stuff that we've seen her talk about.
Just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. Whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. all of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
After the huge controversy Disney has caused, Lucy Hale might just be able to replace Rachel Zegler in the Snow White disaster. Not only does Lucy actually look the part, but she's even proven exactly how much she'd love to play Snow White. Fans believe that after all the controversy Disney and Rachel Zegler have caused for the Snow White movie, it's time to kick Rachel out and bring in Lucy Hale, not only because her looks are absolutely perfect, but also because fans believe Lucy would be able to represent Snow White's personality better than Rachel ever could. Disney has tried its best to seemingly make the movie something completely different to the original, starting with its casting choices. Casting Rachel Zegler, a Latina, as Snow White wasn't well received by fans, as not only does she not fit the character description at all, but she doesn't even seem to understand the role very well. Snow White is all about love and friendship, while also knowing full well she can be a ruler. And it's something that Rachel seems to have thrown out the window, as she doesn't believe that this Snow White fits her feministic vision. According to Rachel, Snow White shouldn't have a love interest, as it's not important to the story. To her, the love story is completely outdated and shouldn't be shown to new generations, despite the fact that it's such a classic that nobody has ever had a problem with before. It sounds like Disney is trying to create a feminist Snow White. However, it isn't done with the fans in mind. Many fans have been arguing against this decision, as love is never anti-feminist. And Disney's new era that seems to be against showing romantic love is not a step in the right direction when it comes to representing girls. This, along with Disney's obsession to try and cast POC roles just because they want to add POC representations to stories, is not doing anything but turning away loyal fans who've grown up with these stories. Having more representation in movies is never a bad thing, as all forms of people should be able to recognize themselves in iconic stories. However, it becomes a problem when it makes no sense for the plot. Many have argued that Disney should just focus on making new original stories, where the focus and the world building can actually do POC actors justice, instead of trying to push POC into roles that were made with different ethnicities in mind. Snow White is a German fairy tale originating from the Grimm brothers stories, and it's very clearly set in a German forest and a German fairy tale castle. It's something that's very deeply integrated in German history, as this is something very naturally occurring in Germany. Snow White is not white just because she's white because she's based on a German fairy tale. The character description makes it very clear that her skin is as white as snow, which is why she's even named Snow White. Taking this away from the character makes no sense, since her name wouldn't be accurate anymore.
All right, so yeah, it's gotten so bad that people have been talking about, Rachel Ziegler being replaced. Now, let me just be absolutely one thing perfectly clear. I didn't even know Rachel Ziegler was Latina until someone said something to me. She doesn't even have that name. She doesn't even have a name that sounds like, oh yeah, you're Latina. Ziegler. How do you know that you're? To me personally, I mean, she's not that attractive. But that's just to me. I know there are other people that find her attractive, but it's just her attitude toward the whole thing that people were like, "Hey, we need to get her replaced." And names like Lucy Hale got tossed around. Millie Bobby Brown got tossed around. Very recently, Jenna Ortega was being pitched to replace Rachel Ziegler. That would be interesting, replacing a Latina with a Latina. All of them have come back false. The Rachel Ziegler is the person. And I think this is one of the things that is going to be a problem for Disney in this with Snow White, because she's just not well liked. And I know one person basically told me, well, people are going to go watch the movie just to hate watch it. My opinion is there isn't going to be enough people to hate watch this film to even come close to a profit. We're going to go into that in just a little bit. But Disney seems to have found, they seem to be in the same position that Warner Brothers found themselves in last year with The Flash and Ezra Miller, when Ezra Miller was all of a sudden, causing huge problems. And they weren't sure what to do with The Flash, because if they released it, they're kind of endorsing all this craziness that Ezra Miller has been doing. But if they don't release it, they've put millions and millions of dollars into this film. Eventually they did release it, going down the route that, hey, this is part of our DC universe. This is part of the bigger picture. We've got to release this film. We'll deal with everything else afterwards. As it turned out, the movie was a disaster. The CGI was horrible. Um, and Ezra Miller's acting didn't do anything to help the Flash. And here's the same thing we're looking at with Snow White. We're looking at, again, animated dwarves with CGI and an actress that's just not that well liked. Now, I really don't care that, a lot of people are going to say that, about, her ethnicity. I really don't care about her ethnicity. I really don't. That's not the thing here that is very much the top priority. Seriously, I mean, from what I figure is, and let me just adjust my mic here. From what I figure is, Rachel Ziegler is a great singer. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why they tapped her to play Snow White, so that she could sing the parts as well as, act. She's a mediocre actress at best. Um, but from what a lot of people have always said, it's always that one big part that you hope that would happen that will move and progress your career to something else. But yeah, this is going to be something that's really interesting, because going on down the line, I mean, I don't know. I have heard that she's been let go from future projects for Snow White, but I think they're going to bank everything they've got on this Snow White, making some money. That's going to be a different problem, because the third reason that it's going to bomb at the box office, and this is from Fandom Wire, budget gotta be huge to make it twice. Rachel Ziegler's Snow White could be a disaster waiting for Disney after budget soars past The Little Mermaid. Disney's Snow White faces unprecedented budget challenges amid fears of a potential box office disaster. This one is written by Hina, published June 28th of this year. Goes on to say, forget glass slippers. Disney's live action Snow White is rocking glass heels with a price tag bigger than Ariel's Coral Castle. Whispers of a ballooning budget surpassing even The Little Mermaid have fans wondering, is the fairy tale a happily ever after or a box office disaster? Disney's live action Snow White remake is a nightmare. Rumors, delays, the magic mirror may reflect a box office disaster. First off, a year-long postponement. To calm the rumor mill, Disney unveiled a photo of Rachel Ziegler as Snow White with the dwarfs. CGI or the real deal? But whispers turned into screams with reports of a rushed photo and characters destined for reshoots. Now the plot thickens. Mail Online drops a $330 million budget bomb, with Disney scrambling to save a potential turkey. And the budget's got to be huge. An insider spills the tea. Disney's freaking out, fearing a flop that could torpedo future remakes and Snow White sequels. Apparently, Tom Hooper's Cats, remember that wonderful film? Remember that critically panned nightmare is there. What not to do manual. Yeah, this is gotta be. This is a huge problem. I remember just a little while ago, I was watching Penguin Zero. He was talking about how in the world are all these budgets getting out of control for some of these television shows and these movies. It has gotten astronomically bad, because truth of the matter is, you really don't have to spend that kind of money to put out a good film. But everybody believes, well, we have to have the huge movie. And I don't even think they've even budgeted for the marketing yet. If you go online, because I looked online just before the show, it did say that the budget was at $209 million. Okay. But you still got to pay for all that CGI. You still got to pay for all the stuff in post. It's being released in March, which means they're still working stuff out in post. They're still working on CGI. They're still working on, they're getting the advertising all together, which is going to cost millions of dollars, you know, to get this out. Which when you put out the next trailer, it's going to get, you know, down millions more times. Um, there's no way. I mean, I think the Little Mermaid, their budget was like over 460 million. I don't have the exact number in my head, but it was astronomical. And Disney claimed it made its money back. I don't know if that's entirely true, because sometimes they've been doing some funny numbers and funny stuff to try to, you know, they want to make it look like it made money, or at least broke even. They don't want another Mulan on their hands. Remember that disaster? And the Little Mermaid was not a bad film. It wasn't entirely a good film either, but it wasn't a bad film. And at least you had an actress that in The Little Mermaid that talked more positively about her experiences in her film. And, you know, I wasn't too keen on some of the directorial decisions on Little Mermaid. And that's why I'm hoping Mark Webb does a better job with Snow White. But with the idea that we're going in a more feminist direction, whatever that means. And I kind of agree, because here's the thing. I think you can still put out a feminist film, have a strong feminine character, and have it still be romantic. You could have her be feminine and feminist. I don't think it's that hard. But lately they want to. I don't know, for some reason they want to, when you say it's a they want to get away from all the feminine stuff in the feminist films, and it kind of just makes the hairs on your neck stand up, because something's not about to be right. Um, yeah, these are the three reasons why I think Snow White's going to just fail, because these dwarfs look horrible. These dwarfs look horrible, and they're not going to have enough time to hire actual dwarfs to do the reshoots. If they do reshoots, honestly, let me tell you something. Honestly, got the truth. If they decide, hey, let's just stop for a minute, let's push it back 6 months, let's get real actors, let's reshoot everything, I think they might have a hit. But then your budget goes up even more, and the idea of it ever making money just is it just is not going to happen. And so I mean, you got to kind of hope and pray that Snow White does relatively well, but it's not going to make a profit. It's going to bomb hard. You've got an actress that no one likes. You've got a budget that's out of control, and now you have animated dwarves that make no sense. And everybody is sitting back and waiting for March for it to open. And the question is going to be, at that point in time, is it better than Cats, or is it worse than Cats? Time will only tell. Anyway, I've gone a little long. I want to thank everybody for watching today. Stick with me. If you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. Hit the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel. That way you all know when I'm going to be back on the screen talking more about stuff. We're coming up on Halloween, so I'm going to be doing some Halloween movie stuff coming up that has been inspired by me from another YouTuber. And if you want to share the channel out to other people, share the video out to other people, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you actually think. Is this movie going to bomb, or is this movie going to fly? This ought to be interesting. It ought to be interesting. Well, with that being said, I am Goose. This is On With the Show. I will see you on the other side.